The drizzle that clung to the battlements of Maegor's holdfast seemed determined to leach the very color from King's Landing. Marble domes dulled to the hue of bone, banners sagged heavy and sodden, and the gods would beyond the curtain wall looked a smear of charcoal against the gray. A dozen servants moved like nervous ghosts across the outer yard, but within the red keep the air itself felt raw with portent, as though every stone could sense the hinge upon which history was now poised. Robert Baratheon, first of his name, king of the Undulls, the Roiner, and the First Men, sprawled upon the velvet cushions of the small council chamber's great seat. Yet for once the chair looked somehow larger than the man. His famous girth filled the gilded antlers armrests with ease, but the rowan-hard swagger had bled from his posture. A flagon of wine rested untasted near his elbow. The king's eyes, storm blue beneath the weight of sleepless circles, lingered not on the council table but upon the slitted windows, as though searching the veil of murk for some half-forgotten horizon. Lord Eddard Stark waited at the opposite end of the long oaken board, hands folded, patience carved upon him like frost on winter bark. He had said nothing since the council was convened, and in that silence Ned sensed the tide's restless draw, the solemn hush before a thunderbreak, the hush of men who know the moment they speak a kingdom may irrevocably change. Grand Maester Pycelle fussed with scrolls, quills, and an inkpot that rattled against the table edge. Renly Baratheon, younger brother to the king, polished a sardonic smile but let it hover unspoken. Littlefinger lounged in shadows near the hearth, green eyes flicking from face to face like a cat sizing birds. Varys, in lavender silks, blinked owlishly and smoothed his sleeves. Only Ser Barristan Selmy wore his truth openly. Cautious hope tempered by grave foreboding. "Your Grace," the Lord Commander began, voice measured as a blade balanced on its point. "The High Septon awaits your summons. Should we ask him to?" Robert's hand rose, forestalling. "We shall come to the High Septon in time." His voice, though softer than the thunder that once shook Tourney grounds, still carried the iron timbre of command. He dragged his gaze from the rain-smeared light. "First, my lords, attend me. There is no deed I undertake lightly, but neither will I live another season bound to a bed of vipers." Pycelle's quill froze mid-scratch. The scratch itself seemed to echo in the hush. Littlefinger's lips curved into something too small to be a smile, too sharp to be anything else. Renly crossed one elegant leg over the other, ringlets of dark hair brushing his brow like signets of approval. Robert drew breath, broad chest rising beneath black velvet. "I will dissolve my marriage to Cersei of House Lannister," he said. "By decree of the faith I will seek an annulment on grounds of inviolability. The Queen has borne me 3 blonde pups and not a single trueborn son." The laughter that might once have accompanied the jibe had fled. The words arrived flensed of humor, stark as butchered meat. "And, should the Seven bless it, I will take Lady Margaery Tyrell to wife before the moon wanes thrice." No thunder could have rattled the chamber harder. Ned felt the throb of his blood as if walls trembled around it. Varys exhaled through pursed lips, soft as summer breeze across crypt doors. Littlefinger's brows danced on his pale brow like nimble jesters. Renly broke the stillness. "Highgarden is flattered, your grace," he said, each syllable polished to courtly sheen. "I've no doubt Lord Mace will shower the realm in roses, though he'll tally every petal twice before parting with it." Robert snorted, half amusement, half dread. "Let him tally. He'll find the sum more than fair." He shifted, the movement setting the golden stags on his doublet dancing. "Ser Barristan, you will take a company of 100. Deliver my sealed letters to Oldtown, one for the High Septon, another for Lord Tyrell. The faith must void the marriage, the reach must seal the new accord. Pycelle." The king turned that storm-blue regard upon the Archmaester. "Draft the missives. Use words that breathe of piety and the realm's salvation. Spare no ink praising Margaery's virtue." Pycelle bobbed like a corvid sniffing carrion. "As your grace commands." "A moment," Ned said at last. His voice, even tempered, filled the hush with northern frost. "This choice, if choice it is, will shatter alliances and forge others in flame. You would pit lion against rose and call upon storm against all comers. I would counsel caution where passions burn so bright. Robert's jaw bunched. Caution is a leash, Ned. I have worn it long, too long. Tywin has held me hostage by my own bed. Every time I look upon that golden-haired brood, I see his smile, not mine. His fist thumped the armrest, making goblets ring. Let him roar from Casterly Rock. The 7 kingdoms will not quake. Yet Ned Stark knew they might. Tywin Lannister's anger, once loosed, had been known to scorch cities better fortified than King's Landing. "What of Jaime?" he asked quietly. "The kingslayer sits the Kingsguard still, and will continue," Robert replied. "For I do not fear him in mail or in bed. Let Cersei take consolation in her brother's arms if she will." A wry twist of lips. "But House Baratheon will have a queen of its choosing, not a Lannister broodmare." Littlefinger leaned forward, steepling rune-sharp fingers. "A canny move," he murmured. "Provided your grace ensures the Tyrells that their rose shall not wilt in court's harsher climes. That bloom is young. The Queen of Thorns will guard every green petal with her thorns indeed." Renly laughed. "Olenna's tongue will lash sharper than any whip, but she wants her granddaughter a queen as badly as Mace wants his seat at the king's table." He brushed a non-existent speck from his sleeve. "Yet let us not forget Cersei's claws. They sink deep." Robert's reply came like turned stone. "They sink only where I allow. This realm was born in rebellion. Let it be reborn in truth." So the wheel began to turn. That evening, beneath the unsteady glow of tallow candles, Cersei Lannister learned her fate from the king's own mouth. The Lioness of the Rock met the pronouncement with a silence sharp enough to draw blood. In the chamber once adorned with golden lions she had chosen to ring her bed, Robert stood a mountain of regret and resolute anger. He spoke of annulment, of children's questionable parentage, of a new path laid in Margaery's pale hands. Cersei's green eyes widened, not with surprise but with something older, something colder, a shiver behind emerald glass. When at last her voice came, it was the creak of velvet drawn across steel. "You would trade a lioness for a child in flower petals? For peace with a house of gardeners?" Her smile seemed carved from emerald. "The garden soil is rich with manure, Robert. Roses bloom, then wither. Gold endures." Robert refused to flinch. "Your gold's cost is my crown rotting from within." He spoke harsh truths, of whispers that her children were not his, of courtiers snickering behind goblets, of the realm's uncertain heir. "I will father a true son, born of my blood, wearing black hair and Baratheon features the whole realm can see." Cersei's hands strayed to the neck of her gown, nails glinting. "And what of our children? You would declare them bastards in all but name." "They will be cared for," he said, "provided for, yet they will not sit the Iron Throne." "You think the realm will accept this? A dangerous lilt like wine swirling about poison. You invite war, my king. You invite lions to bare their fangs." Robert's reply came with the finality of an axe. "Then let them bear them. I have hammered iron before. I can hammer it again." In that moment Cersei measured him, and found, perhaps, a different man than the youthful rebel she had wed. Grief flickered in her gaze, not for love lost. There had never been love, but for power slipping through her fingers like golden sand. She bowed her head, the gesture neither submission nor surrender, but concealment. When she raised it again, her smile was placid snow upon a winter field. "Very well, my king, but know that roses draw blood, and songs can drown the roar of any storm. Guard your heart, for you have just laid it bare." Robert left her then, and when the door closed Cersei's composure shattered like crystal flung against stone. Alone, she sank onto the edge of the great bed, hands trembling. Not in fear, Cersei Lannister knew little of that, but in fury at a world that dared to unmake her. In that fury, seeds were sown. Highgarden in spring is a tapestry of living color, and as Robert's envoys wound along the Mander, they carried with them rumors that bloomed even faster than the orchards. By the time Ser Barristan's column crested the final hill, The news had unfurled through fields of golden wheat and pale blue cornflowers. King Robert cast aside his queen, and House Tyrell was poised upon glory's threshold. Lord Mace Tyrell received the white bull in the great courtyard surrounded by banners of green and gold. Behind him stood Lady Olenna Redwine, whose sharp eyes missed nothing, and Margaery herself, flanked by brothers Loras and Garland. The Lord's cheeks flushed pink beneath a spray of blossoms pinned to his mantle. "Lord Commander," Mace boomed. "Permit me to say what an honor." Olenna cleared her throat, a sound like a sparrow snapping a twig. "Spare the pomp, Mace. Ser Barristan did not ride south to bask in your pretensions. Show him to the solar and fetch the documents." "Sir Bahistan Bovid, Ijinha Ismail." He handed over the wax-sealed letters, emblem of stag and crown impressed deep. As Olenna perused the first, lips thinning, Mace busied himself praising the king's wisdom. Margaery, 15 summers but already luminous with poise, dipped a graceful curtsy. Her eyes, brown and bright, flicked up to hold Barristan's with a frankness that spoke of steel beneath velvet. "Tell me, sire," she said, voice soft yet sure, "does his grace truly wish for peace, or is this marriage a signal fire for war beyond our walls?" The question startled him, but he answered plainly. "His grace seeks to secure the throne's future, yet every action of kings weaves peace and war together, my lady. The loom is ever turning." Margaery's lips curved, thoughtful. "Then let us weave a cloth to warm the realm, not strangle it." Olenna folded the parchment with a decisive snap. "The faith will grant annulment, Mace. The letter says so. The High Septon's pockets will jingle with reach silver, I've no doubt." She turned to the Lord Commander. "Tell your king that House Tyrell accepts, but we are not fools. We shall bring half of Highgarden with us to the capital, so that our bloom is not plucked unguarded." Barristan inclined his head. "Your caution does you credit, my lady." "Caution?" she sniffed. "Merely good gardening. Roses grow best when the weeds are kept at bay." In King's Landing, even as Masons prepared the Great September for a royal annulment unheard of since the days of the Faith Militant, Tywin Lannister summoned his household to Casterly Rock. The raven bore words laced with iron. "The king would dishonor our house. The lion will not purr beneath another's yoke." Jaime rode from the capital in secret 2 nights later, golden armor cloaked in dusk. He left the king's guard white of his cloak behind, and with it an oath strained to fracturing. Tyrion quit his cups and followed in his own fashion, mind racing quicker than his mule. At court, whispers multiplied. Wagging tongues spoke of lions raising banners, of reach levies marching east, of the Iron Throne caught between thorn and claw. Ned Stark, friend to a king but wary of folly, penned letters to Winterfell urging Robb prepare his levies, only should the realm require northern steadiness. He soothed courtiers when Robert thundered. He pressed the king to heed caution when wine spoke louder than counsel. Yet Robert's resolve burned bright as forge flame. "Let Tywin come," he said on the ramparts at dusk, gazing west where storms brew. "The realm shall see whose will is iron." Below, small folk whispered of wedding plans, of floats of roses drifting down the Blackwater, of barrels of summer wine gifted by Lord Mace, of a queen who would smell of spring after the long winter of Lannister rule. The bakeries painted sugar pastes into stag and flower shapes. Seamstresses clucked over bolts of green silk. Yet for every delight there lurked dread, like rats in larder corners. Ser Jorah Mormont returned to court with a new packet of Eastern whispers, found Varys in murmured conversation with Illyrio Mopatis' courier. "Chaos?" the spider insinuated. "Is a ladder some would climb to unseat a drunken stag?" Jorah shrugged, seeking coin for news of dragon princes across the sea. The spider smiled, as though dragons were but another rumor to hoard. The annulment itself proved spectacle beyond scripture. On the 4th day of the 3rd moon, the great September snave blazed with lantern light while thousands crammed the Street of the Sisters. The High Septon, sweating beneath a crown of crystal, read the charges of consanguinity thwarted, of heirs in doubt. Cersei stood cloaked in Lannister crimson, her expression sculpted marble. Robert, in Baratheon black trimmed with gold thread, spoke his consent with steady voice. When the Septon declared the marriage dissolved, a hiss coursed the crowd like wind through tinder. Some cried relief, others smelt battle in the air. 2 hours later, a steward unlucky enough to cross Cersei's path stumbled into the outer yard with a broken nose and terror in his eyes. The Queen Regent, no longer queen, retreated to her apartments and barred the doors. From within issued muffled sobs, or perhaps curses. No one dared ask. Margaery Tyrell's arrival in King's Landing was heralded by a procession of wagons laden with golden apples, casks of arbor gold, and a menagerie of peacocks. Crowds thronged the city gates to glimpse the Rose of the Reach. She rode at the center of a knot of gleaming knights, Ser Loras foremost among them in his white and green armor, a living sigil of chivalry. Robert watched from atop Aegon's high hill as the river of green and gold climbed the city. He stood beside Ned, breath fogging in early dawn chill despite perspiration beading his brow. "A fine sight," he admitted, and the awe in his voice was genuine. Yet there was apprehension too, like the taut hush before a melee charge. Ned measured his friend. "Is it peace you see, or war?" Robert's answer was wind-blown away before it reached the Northman's ears. Perhaps it was both. Perhaps the king himself did not yet know. 5 days later, within the sept newly wreathed in roses and starlight, Robert Baratheon bent the knee not to pray but to speak vows anew. Margaery's gown spilled like dew-touched dawn, its train carried by sisters in green samite. Her hair was woven with strands of gold, but none so bright as the smile that lit her face when Robert whispered a trembling "I do." The rings exchanged, stag and rose intertwined, glinted under 1,000 candles. When they turned to face the realm, the roar of the crowd shook stained glass. Cersei watched from a balcony draped in Lannister red, flanked by Tommen and Myrcella. Joffrey sulked, denied his mother's side by royal command. The Golden Queen's smile remained, wider than any mask in Braavos, yet her eyes shone with something raw as newborn flame. That night, feasts spilled across 3 concourses of the Red Keep. Barrels were broached, minstrels played, and the smell of roast boar mingled with rosewater perfume. Robert caroused with Renly and the Reach Lords, yet for once the flagon lost to his hand more often than not. He stole glances at his new bride, radiant upon the dais. When their gazes met, something like wonder danced across the king's weathered features. Work of war-scarred years softened. For a breath Robert became again the laughing youth who swung a warhammer beneath Summerhall's half-collapsed towers. Margaery returned his look with composure that belied 15 summers. Yet when she dipped her head, heat colored her cheeks. Whether from modesty or calculation, none could say. Ned, seated near the high table, noted every exchange. He saw Varys watching too, fingers steepled above plump belly. Littlefinger whispered into Olenna's ear, both smiling conspirators. Ser Barristan sat sentinel, palm ever upon the pommel of his sword. Amidst revelry, lines were drawn and alliances measured like coin upon a scales. At the feast's height, the king rose. Silence rippled outward. Robert raised his goblet. "To my wife," he said, voice ringing like bronze. "May the 7 bless her womb with sons strong as oaks, daughters fair as summer day. May this union bind reach and crown, restore plenty to the realm, and drown all enmity in love." He drained deep, then refilled with arbor gold and splashed libation upon the floor for the gods. Cheer erupted. Harps sang of Garth Greenhand and the Storm King. Loras Tyrell presented his sister with a circlet of rose-cut emeralds. Renly toasted the Tyrells thrice, then danced a reel with Garland's wife. As moon climbed high, even dour Stannis allowed a thin smile, though it vanished when he caught Cersei's gaze, glinting across the hall like drawn steel. But roses, though they bloom bright, root in earth dark and unseen. While king and queen lay in nuptial beds scented with damask petals, other seeds sprouted in corridors where torchlight never reached. Cersei's fury forged an alliance of necessity with her father, Tywin, who gathered armies at the Golden Tooth. Ravens flew through star-specked skies carrying cryptic verses. One bore words to Euron Crow's eye upon Pike, promising gold for chaos. Another lost its way above Crackclaw Point, its message stolen by bandits whose tongues were swiftly silenced. Yet other letters found purchase among Sellsword captains from the disputed lands, men with no loyalty save coin. Across the sea in Bravos, the Iron Bank consulted ledgers and weighed risk. The crown's credit rose with Reach grain pledged, yet the Lannister mines lay sovereign over half the realm's gold. The bankers stroked waxed beards, uncertain which purse would prove deeper. In the Riverlands, Hoster Tully fretted. To choose Stag stirred Tywin's wrath, yet to succor Lion might choke on rose thorns. At the Eyrie, Lisa quailed behind stone. She wrote frantic missives to her sister at Winterfell, pleading neutrality, though the Vale's knights longed for cause to ride. Dorne watched with heat-sharpened eyes. Prince Doran moved pieces across a board none could see, his gout-swelled hands trembling not from pain but from anticipation. And on Dragonstone's wind-lashed cliffs, Melisandre of Ashai spread carved stags across an obsidian altar. Flames licked ruby glow into her eyes as she whispered of shadows crowned in thorn and crowned in gold, of a stag whose heart beat strong, yet whose time in light might dim beneath gathering night. Months passed, and the realm, like a harp string pulled taut, thrummed upon the edge of some vast chord. Summer waned, autumn storms brewed. Yet within the Red Keep, a curious peace settled. Robert's cups seldom overflowed. He attended small council more often. He hunted less, his laughter rang truer. Margaery walked the gardens each dawn, learning the names of cooks and sergeants, offering frank smiles to washerwomen. Old soldiers muttered that the Queen's scent of roses lingered like blessing across training yards. Once Ned found robe, RT in the armory polishing his warhammer. "Remember the Whispering Wood?" the king asked, smile lines creasing. "When we were lads chasing glory?" "Aye," Ned said, "and near killed ourselves for it." Robert chuckled. "Would you believe I miss it? Battle, fear, that keen edge." He looked down at the hammer. "But now I see other edges, a realm to mend, and a wife who looks at me as though I've sense." Ned regarded him gently, then wield the hammer in court, Robert. "Shape peace as you shaped victory." Robert nodded, resolve gathering. Yet forging peace demanded more than a king's desire. It required bending pride to purpose. When Tywin's reply finally arrived, a scroll of red wax stamped by Roaring Lion, it carried demands. Castamir's debt repaid in coin and honor, Lannister grandchildren confirmed legitimate, and Jaime released from Kingsguard vows to marry a princess of Highgarden if the crown would keep the lion's tail from twitching. Robert's counsel near fractured. Renly laughed at the idea of trading Jaime like horseflesh. Varys cooed that it might quell the rock's ire. Littlefinger saw opportunities stacked within concessions. Ned bristled, praying for simpler days. In the end, Robert refused. "I will not trade sons and daughters like chips to buy Tywin's peace. Let him meet me on field or table, but let him meet me as subject, not equal." Before answer could be sent, word reached that Jaime Lannister and 200 knights had crossed the Blackwater Rush, heading not to Casterly Rock but toward Tumbleton, burning Baratheon banners as they rode, claiming insult upon the king's honor. Rumor spoke of Cersei urging them from behind her door in hushed testament. At dawn, horns blared across the capital. Robert donned mail once more, stag helm gleaming. "If the kingslayer wants a fight," he growled, "he shall have one." Yet Margaery knelt before him in the yard, hands clasped around his gauntlets. "Your grace," she pleaded. "Your place is here, where your crown cannot be severed by sword. Let your bannermen ride. Let reason speak first." Robert's gaze flicked to Ned. Stark nodded slow. Against instinct, the king relented. Ser Barristan and Renly rode at the vanguard instead, 10,000 strong, Tyrell levies joining Baratheon forces along the Rose Road. Jaime, upon learning the force arrayed, wheeled his host west and vanished into misty foothills. Bloodless this time, but the die was cast. Winter's breath stirred early snow atop the wall. The night Maester Aemon observed a crimson comet trailing across the sky. He took it as omen, though whether of ice or fire he could not say. In King's Landing, Melisandre read the same streak within her flames, and smiled. In her royal chambers, Margaery Tyrell gazed out upon the quiet city. She felt the new life stirring within her. The Maester's assertions whispered of a son. News of pregnancy spread swift as arrows. Small folk cheered. Lords measured vantage anew. Robert knelt beside his wife, calloused hand trembling upon her belly. "A boy," he murmured, voice cracked with wonder. "He will have your eyes and my hammer arm." Margaery laughed low. "Or my tongue and your stubbornness." She brushed hair from his brow. "He will have the realm's hopes upon his shoulders. Guide him well, my king." "I will." Robert pressed his lips to her hand. Yet even as joy swelled, shadow stalked court. Cersei, denied crown and now threatened with superseding heirs, seethed. She met Tyrion in secret alcoves, forged schemes with Pycelle, and sent maids bearing silken packages, vials of clear liquid strong enough to still hearts before their first beat. One night she slipped into the queen's gardens, moonlight silvering her hair. At a fountain framed by marble mermaids, Margaery sat reading by candlelamp, draped in cloak of emerald. Cersei approached like a ghost. "You sit alone," she said, voice mellifluous. Margaery closed her book. "Alone yet guarded. The king's hand stands beyond the arch, and 3 of your former queen's guard." Cersei's smile did not reach her eyes. "My, how quickly you learn. The Red Keep teaches swiftly." "Does it?" Cersei stepped closer, trailing a finger across stone. "Beware, child. Roses wither here. Petals bruise beneath iron." Margaery tilted her head, serene. "Roses also bear thorns, my lady, and thorns can pierce even iron." Green eyes met brown. Flint struck flint. No further words passed. But when Cersei turned away, her face burned with something dangerously like respect. Far west, Tywin Lannister marched at last. 30,000 lions gleamed under the pale sun. Yet as they neared the Mander, they found bridges collapsed, fields scorched, and stores empty. Highgarden's subtle war of attrition. Renly and Barristan shadowed their flanks, refusing pitch battle, bleeding them with raids. The campaign stretched into winter, when supply lines snapped like frozen twigs. Across riverlands, ravens screamed. Houses chose sides, swords were drawn. Yet open war stalled, tense as bowstring. Within the stalemate, Robert forged new coinage bearing rose-crowned stag. Grain shipments from Reach granaries kept King's Landing fed, and word of Margaery's gentle governance spread. She gifted warm cloaks to orphans, pardoned debtors, restored the decrepit soup kitchens along Flea Bottom. In the small council chamber, Robert hammered through reforms. Tariffs eased on northern timber, levies trimmed upon small folk, broadswords replaced with plowshares for men who wished peace. He drank less with each decree. Ned wrote to Winterfell, "I dare hope the boy I knew returns in the man I serve." Yet Tywin's pride was a beast unsated. One moonless night, his outriders captured a Tyrell courier bearing letters, proof of bank loans that fed the crown, and cryptic hints of Dorne's secret treaty with the Tyrells to curb Lannister ambitions. Tywin sent the letters to the Iron Bank and to every lord along the Reach's border. Prices soared. Loans were called in. Unrest flickered. Back in the capital, Varys laid the scrolls before the king. Robert paled but resolved. "I will speak with Tywin," he said, summoning a parley at Bitterbridge. Ned opposed, fearing treachery. Renly supported, seeing chance for peace. Margaery, heavy with child, bade him carry her love and hope. Thus, Robert rode to Bitterbridge beneath banners of gold and black. With him went Ser Barristan, Ned, a host of 200 chosen knights. On the opposing rise, Tywin awaited, lion standard snapping. They met in a field between armies. Words passed like distant thunder. Tywin demanded Cersei reinstated, children secured in succession, Jaime freed of constant suspicion. Robert offered honors but not crown, security but not succession. Sunset burned crimson as they parted. No accord reached. That night, storms rose like wrath of gods, and in darkness a Lannister crossbow bolt pierced the king's tent, but struck the wooden mast, not flesh. The assassin vanished. Suspicion festered. Robert rode home cloaked in anger, but worst awaited. Margaery had taken ill. A fever raged, maesters puzzled, and the unborn child stirred weakly. Varys whispered of poison. Ser Dantos, half-drunk, swore he'd seen Pycelle slipping amber flasks to Cersei's maids. By morning, Margaery's fever broke, yet worry gnawed deeper. Cersei was confined to chambers pending inquiry. Jaime, hearing, vowed blood. Tywin's reply raven arrived blank but for sigil. A lion's skull atop Rose stem. Snowflakes drifted upon King's Landing for the first time in a decade. Ashy flakes melted on Margaery's window as she cradled her newborn son. Edric Robert, hair dark as night, eyes clear Tyrell brown. The cries of a child echoed across stone corridors like herald of dawn. Robert wept openly, Ned's hand upon his shoulder. The realm's air lay swaddled in rose-stitched cloth, and hope, for an instant, felt tangible. Yet across the sea, 3 dragon hatchlings chirped within a smoky tower, and in a shackled cell of Pentos, a magister smiled. In Dorne, Arian Martell traced lines upon a map, her silence the hush of afterstorm. And in the north, rumors grew of dead things walking beyond the wall. Every blossom casts a shadow, every dawn foretells dusk. Still, for now, in the gilded chambers of King's Landing, the stag and the rose entwined, and from their union light spilled forth, fragile, flickering, yet real. Whether wind or war would snuff it lay yet unwritten. But the tale had only begun its winding course through hearts and thrones, secrets and songs. For when a king dares sever fate and wed new destiny, the very gods lean close to watch, and all the realm must learn anew what price is paid when roses bloom in winter. 60,000 characters. The sky above King's Landing wore a bruised mantle of violet when the bells of the great September tolled for morning prayers, their bronze throats groaning like titans roused from uneasy dreams. In the royal apartments, torch sconces guttered against the pall, sending amber ripples across carved panels of hunting stags. Margaery Baratheon, Rose of the Reach and newly forged Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, stirred in her canopied bed at the soft whimper of her son. Edric Robert lay swaddled in a cradle of lacquered oak no larger than a sailor's sea chest. He was scarcely 2 moons old, yet already the highborn ladies whispered that the boy's black hair promised Baratheon mettle while his quiet, watchful eyes hinted at Tyrell grace. Margaery rose, feet sinking into a rug of Myrish velvet, and lifted the child. A lantern's glow revealed her face, pale from lingering convalescence yet bright with quiet triumph. The poison that nearly stole her life, and the life within her, had been thwarted by a timely purge of ipecac and milk of the poppy. The maesters credited chance. Margaery credited the gods and a discreet handmaid who had tasted the honeyed ale meant for her mistress and perished that same night. She pressed her lips to her son's brow. "You shall grow tall and straight, my sweet stagling." She rocked gently, humming an old harvest song her grandmother taught her among the apple groves of Brightwater. Moments later the door clicked open, and King Robert filled the frame, still half-armored from dawn drill in the yard. His hair, once coal-black, showed threads of silver, but the girth of his middle had receded these past moons, traded for the whipcord of a man who wielded hammer and will in equal measure. He crossed and planted a gentle kiss upon his wife's temple, then upon the infant's downy crown. "He eats well, like a suckling pig," Margaery replied with a wry smile, "but with far better manners." Robert chuckled, then sobered. A courier arrived from the west. Tywin fell back to Ashmark. Our scouts saw smoke, his armies torching fields behind them. "That speaks of hunger." She eased Edric into his cradle. "With supply lines cut and winter pressing, the lion will soon feel his belly growl." She met Robert's gaze solemn. "Cornered beasts lunge, my love." "He may lunge, but my guard is ready." Robert closed a massive hand over her smaller one. Ser Barristan has knights patrolling every approach. Renly commands the Rose Road, and Stannis holds Storm's End iron tight. The Iron Bank still favors the Stag. They've lent us enough to feed 3 winters. Coin will not mend daggers slipped between ribs. Robert's face clouded. That is why you remain within these walls. Should worst come, I will see you escorted to Dragonstone with our son, under fleet escort and Tyrell swords. And abandon you? She lifted her chin. I will not be carried off like some damsel in songs. I am your queen. And Edric is my heir, he said softly. He cannot sit the throne from a coffin, nor can you guide him if you share his tomb. Margaery's breath caught, but before reply could form, muffled trumpets sounded from the yard below, their high blare chasing crows from the crenellations. Robert strode to the window. A column of riders clattered through the mud gate, banners snapping bright, a golden hand upon crimson. Jaime Lannister had returned to King's Landing, though whether as envoy or blade none yet knew. The small council gathered by sixth bell. Sunlight speared through slit windows, dust motes swirling like embers as attendants doused incense in brazier bowls. Robert sat flanked by Ser Barristan and Lord Stark, his countenance hewn from granite. Opposite knelt Jaime, hair bound at the nape, white cloak trailing. Though stripped of knighthood for abandoning post, he yet bore the swagger of a man certain of his own legend. Robert's voice rumbled. "Rise and speak." Jaime rose. "I come as herald of my father. Lord Tywin seeks parley in the capital. No sword, no host, only himself and 2 sworn shields." Ned's gray eyes narrowed. "A lion in a stag's den is lion all the same." Jaime smirked. "As is a dire wolf. Yet we're in a king's den, Lord Stark, and his grace may judge which beast he invites." Robert drummed fingers on oak. "Tell me Tywin's terms." "Recognition," Jaime said. "Cersei's name restored. My sister acknowledged as Dowager Queen. My nephew Joffrey granted Storm's End to rule when he comes of age. Myrcella named Lady of Casterly Rock upon Lord Tywin's death." Ned half rose. "Outrageous. Storm's End is Baratheon's seat." Renly, lounging near the hearth, snorted. "And Lady of the Rock while Tywin yet breathes? The lion would outlive us all to spite her." Robert silenced them with a raised hand. "Anything else?" Jaime's gold-flecked eyes gleamed. "Peace, grain, gold, and allegiance. In return, House Baratheon's heir remains undisputed." He nodded at a squire cradling a polished oaken chest. "And this a token." The lid lifted. Inside lay a twisted lump of melted steel affixed to a scorched wooden shield. "Rob Rayne's breastplate," Jaime said. "The last scrap from Castamir's vaults. Father offers it as reminder. A lion repays peace with wealth, war with annihilation." Silence pooled heavy. The hall seemed to inhale. Robert's gaze lingered on the relic, then on Jaime. "Tell your father I'll consider. He'll have my answer by Raven course." His stare hardened. "And Jaime, remain in the city as my guest until then." A subtle trap. Ned saw it at once. Jaime's presence bound Tywin's hand. Dare the lion risk his son's head? Yet a kingslayer tethered within walls bred peril of its own. Jaime bowed, lips thin. "As you wish, your grace." With a flourish, he pivoted and swept from the chamber, cloak billowing like pale flame. When the doors thunked shut, Renly released a low whistle. "We hold the golden hostage and the old lion sues for terms. I'd wager half the reach he's bluffing. Strike now, brother, and break him."
Ned bristled.
"Strike and widow half the west? Tywin's armies may be starving, but they yet number tens of thousands. And ours." Renly countered. Robert exhaled. "Enough to win, but at cost. Too much blood has soaked these stones." His gaze flicked to Ned. "I mean to answer Tywin with conditions. He lays down arms, swears fealty, pays reparations for attempted regicide. Cersei may keep her lands and gold but leaves court. Joffrey may have a seat, say, Dragonstone under regency. far from my son's crown. The line of succession will be Edric's alone. Littlefinger, seated like a shade beside the hearth, tapped a quill against parchment. A bold middle road. Grant the lion dignity, yet clip his claws. Claws grow back, Varys murmured, hands hidden in sleeves. Unless root and blood are removed. Robert slam rattled cups. Enough. I shall not butcher children for safety's sake.
He met Ned's eyes.
Ready the ravens. Tywin has 5 days to answer. Evening found Margaery walking the Godswood with Lady Olenna, whose stern silhouette ambled beneath orange lantern glow like a wry old fox in fading orchard. The autumn leaves painted pathways ember and gold. Here, away from court ears, truth might breathe. The king plays a perilous game, Olenna said, cane tapping tile. A half measure at a time when the pot near boils. Peace breeds harvests. War breeds widows, Margaery replied, plucking a scarlet leaf from low branch. If Robert can bind Tywin with gold, fewer graves will fill. Olenna sniffed. Tywin binds others with gold. He cannot be bound by it. But your heart is kind, child. Quite good for you, less so for realms. Margaery paused at the heart tree, carved face weeping sap like tears. Must the realm be ruled only by fear? Fear, coin, or love? Love is fickle, coin flows away. Fear remains when all else fails. Olenna's cragged fingers brushed the weirwood's bark. Still, a queen must wield such tools she owns. You have beauty, breeding, and now a son. Use all three. Margaery looked through rustling boughs toward the distant keep, where a single high window glowed. In that light, she imagined Cersei pacing like a caged lioness. Love can be forged, she whispered. If I win the small folk, the lords will follow. Olenna grunted approval. Just so. Feed the poor, cloth the chilly, heal the sick. Let every beggar see a rose on his crust and he'll bleed for you. She patted Margaery's arm. But mind the thorns you scatter. Someone may collect them for arrows. 3 days later, Jaime strolled through the yard beneath watchful spears, wearing the easy grace of a man who fears neither cell nor scaffold. He sparred with Loras Tyrell at dawn, trading jest with cuts. By mid-afternoon, he dined with Sansa Stark and the Lady Miranda Royce in the Maiden Vault, open laughter glinting like silverware. Even deprived of sword belt, Jaime turned captivity into courtship, weaving Lannister charm through tapestry of rumor. That night, as torches flickered low, Ned received secret summons from Varys. In a forgotten anteroom lined with dusty suits of Valyrian steel, the spider bowed. Lord Stark, a delicate truth flutters too fragile for court daylight. Ned, weary yet wary, folded arms. Speak. A message, intercepted en route to Casterly Rock. Varys produced a scroll, broken wax revealing twin roses, sigil of House Tyrell.
Ned scan Ned.
Words. Pending Robert's failure, the Reach must reposition. Should the Stag stumble, petals must catch the crown. Signed not by Mace, but by Paxter Redwine, Margaery's uncle, to Willis Tyrell. What treachery is this? Varys' smile was sorrowful. Prudence, perhaps. The Reach plans contingencies. Ned's voice chilled. The Queen knows nothing of this. I'll stake my honor. Honor is precious, my lord, but so is caution. If Robert falls in battle, Edric an infant, who rules? Tywin? Stannis? Renly? The Tyrells prepare. Ned weighed paper as though it were a dagger. Why show me? Because you are hand. Because peace may hinge on curbing ambition, be it lion or rose. Varys bowed, robe swirling. Do with it what you must. Later, candle guttering low, Ned penned a letter to Mace Tyrell, heavy with veiled warning. Yet before Raven winged away, he learned that Tywin's answer had arrived. A single strip of flayed crimson skin, no message, delivered to the city gates. Beneath its slick surface, tattooed in black, blazed a stag's head split by a lion's claw. The courier, a mute sellsword, had choked on his own tongue. Removed, it seemed, to thwart interrogation. War, Ned knew, would not be averted by letters. Robert convened Lord's bannermen in the Dragon Pit, that colossal ruin echoing with the ghost shrieks of long-dead Waramis. Torches stood in iron baskets, their flames clawing ancient scaffolds while 1,000 barbs of cracked ribs jutted from the soil. Lords from Storm's End to White Harbor filled makeshift tiers, armored and grim. At center stood Robert, mail-heavy, warhammer slung. Across shoulder, Margaery, flanked by Renly and Ser Barristan, occupied a dais draped in stag and rose. "My lords," Robert began, voice swelling like drumbeat, "the lion refuses the yoke. He sent skin where words might stand. Hear me. House Baratheon did not seize this throne to cower before tyrants cloaked in gold. We marched from Storm's End once. Will you march again?" A roar answered. Blades ringed from scabbards. Robert raised hand. Yet wars cost staggers. Not just coin. Sons, fathers, mothers, harvests. I will not bleed this realm dry for pride alone. So we ride with purpose. To break Tywin's host swiftly, spare small folk from years of raid and famine. He gestured to Ned. Lord Stark commands the northern host, now camped at Harrenhal. Ser Barristan leads the Crown's column east of the Blackwater. Renly's reachmen hold the Rose Road. Stannis guards the sea lanes. I march at dawn to join Barristan and lift siege of Maidenpool, where Lannister Sells-words rape and burn. Eyes turned to Margaery. She stood, voice lilting yet firm. To those who must stay, know that the Queen and court will tend wounded, shelter orphans, and keep markets filled. The faith shall distribute grain free to any child hungry. The crown will pay tithes to septs that open doors to refugees. She swept gaze across armored visages. Fight then, but fight knowing what you protect. The lords thumped hilts to breastplates. In that cavern of broken dragons, resolve crystallized into fatal promise. Jaime observed preparations from a tower window, hands clasped behind his back. By candlelight, he drafted a letter on perfumed parchment. Father, the stag sets forth tomorrow. His hammer thunders still, but rust creeps along the haft. I remain guest, though whether hostage or pawn I cannot judge. The queen breeds goodwill. The king inspires fear. Both may fall should their lines snap. Strike Harrenhal's flank while Robert moves east. Take the twins, split the Northmen, and winter will do the rest. Your ever-dutiful son,
Ser Jaime.
He wax-sealed it, then unlocked a leather falcon box perched on sill. The bird inside, coal-feathered and red-eyed, was bred for stealth flights. Outside, bells told Compline. Jaime tied scroll to Talon, whispered fly, and launched the falcon into the night. Moments later, a soft click behind him made his knuckles whiten on the sill. He turned. Tyrion lounged against the jamb, crooked smile beneath mismatched eyes. Plotting, dear brother? Corresponding, Jaime corrected. With whom? None of your moth-eaten business. Tyrion approached. Oh, but plots are my wine and bread. Our sire asked me to find ways to open your cell, yet here you float free through corridors. One wonders whether father's coin buys anything these days. Jaime's jaw tightened. I am hostage. Hostage with privileges. Which begs question. How loyal is a hostage who can roam? Tread carefully. Tyrion raised palms. Merely curious. But remember, walls have ears. Even falcons are heard by cats. He straightened, face suddenly solemn. I came to warn you. Varys sniffed a rat in your chambers. Make of that what you will. Varys can eat the rat, Jaime muttered, but unease coiled in his gut. Tyrion turned to go. One counsel, wear the armor they lent you to the farewell feast. Poison flows freer than wine of late. At dawn, Robert's column thundered across the Blackwater Bridge, banners streaming. Ned rode north the same hour, his host a steel river bound for Harrenhal. Margaery and the infant heir watched from ramparts until hooves were dust specks. She pressed Edric to her chest, feeling each heartbeat echo her own tremors of fear. In the Tower of the Hand, Varys convened an enclave of Whisper Knights, agents veiled by trade or faith, seeking any rumor of Tywin's next thrust. One reported gold cloaks bribed in Flea Bottom. Another claimed sight of a faceless man near Dragon Gate. Yet the true blade hid deeper. The 6th day after Robert's departure, Margaery's court hosted a feast to honor the warrior's march. Dornish reds flowed, minstrels plucked lutes, and the queen moved among nobles sowing smiles. Jaime attended, clad in knightly white, eyes ever roving. Cersei sat alone at a lesser table, ringed by ladies who whispered poison and pity alike. Midway through a peacock course, a jug of arbor gold shattered upon the dais, glass shards glinting like frozen tears. Gasps rippled as a serving boy collapsed, convulsing, foam flecking blue lips. Maesters rushed, but death claimed him swift. Varys knelt, sniffed the spilled wine, and his brows knit. "Stronger than basilisk blood," he murmured. Ser Barristan's gaze cut across hall, landing upon the queen's cup, untouched. Margaery's eyes widened. She clasped her throat, though she had not drunk. The crowd erupted, fear, suspicion, shrieking. Jaime sprang between Cersei and the exit. Gold cloaks surged. Tyrion mounted a trestle bench, bellowing for calm. Amid the din, Littlefinger slipped away. The hall was sealed, every goblet tested. 2 more bore faint traces of the same poison, one destined for Margaery, the other for Cersei. Panic churned into accusation. Tyrell knights and Lannister retainers clashed with words, then steel. Ser Preston Greenfield fell to a reach spear. A Florent cousin took a dagger in thigh. Only Barristan's booming command halted the bloodshed. Margaery, cheeks wan yet voice firm, ordered hostages taken of both factions until culprit found. She turned to Cersei. "It seems someone wishes lions and roses dead alike." Cersei's smile curved thin as cat's claws. Or perhaps one side sought to disguise intent by doubling target. "I offer condolences, your grace, though poison is such an unbecoming method." Margaery inclined head. "Unbecoming yet effective if delivered." She glanced toward Jaime, whose brows furrowed. For a heartbeat, shared understanding flickered. Unknown hands steered a deeper design. Word of the feast's treachery raced on raven wings, overtaking Robert's army as it crossed the Trident. The king read the parchment beneath storm-cloud sky. "Poison for my wife and ex-queen?" Rage roared through him, but fear lanced deeper. Had he left his heart behind, naked to shadow blades? He doubled the pace to Maidenpool, vowing victory within fortnight that he might return and root out vipers. Ned, meanwhile, reached tumbling towers of Harrenhal to find them lit by corpse pyres. Lannister outriders had struck the river camp 3 days before, burning wagons, slaying grooms. Northmen pinned one red cloak alive to gates as warning. Inside the hollow castle, Ned convened war council. "Tywin seeks to draw us west," Roose Bolton murmured, pale eyes reflecting torchlight. "He flees, but toward what trap?" "The twins," Great John Umber rumbled. "Split us from Southrons, force us to cross the Green Fork under fire." Ned studied map. "We march brisk to cut him off near Fairmarket. Send ravens to Renly. Have him push north from Bitterbridge." Roose inclined head. "As you command, my lord." Yet that night, a hooded figure slit the throats of 2 sentries and scaled Ned's tower. Steel whispered from sheath, then hesitated over sleeping form of Robb Stark. The intruder crept past the heir's pallet and instead slipped beneath Ned's door. But Ned wakened to the hiss of steel on stone. His sword met the assassin's dirk. They clashed in moonlit gloom. Blood spattered white linen as Ned's blade sheared tendon. He yanked mask. Beneath, eyes of poisoned green glared. Rhaegar's squire's son, once thought slain at the Trident, now sells word for Lannister coin. Before questions could be hurled, the assassin bit down on a glass bead concealed in tooth. Purple foam frothed. He died grinning. On his wrist, a tattoo. Rose stem crowned by lion skull. Ned ordered his body burned and wrote urgent letter to the queen. Back in the capital, investigations churned. Varys traced the poisoned casks to a Braavosi vintner who vanished days prior. Tyrion bribed jailers, coaxing confession from a cellarer who claimed Littlefinger paid double wage to store those very casks near the dais. Littlefinger, when summoned, arrived immaculate in gray velvet. He bowed low. My queen demands answers. Peter offers possibilities. I procured certain wines for the feast, true, yet my task ended there. Any man of cork and barrel might doctor them thereafter. Who else knew of the stock? Margaery asked. Littlefinger's gaze flicked to Cersei. Why, the cellar keeper of the rock, sent by Lady Lannister to ensure her vintage poured suitable. He shrugged slim shoulders. I am but humble broker.
Cersei lo grand britol.
You would blame my household when your rich cousins managed the kitchens? Enough, Ser Barristan barked. Until proofs surface, all tongues shall cease flinging mud. Margaery dismissed them, yet as Littlefinger departed, he whispered to the queen in passing, Careful where you plant roses, your grace. Some soils breed strangler instead. That night Margaery dreamed of creeping vines coiling round Edric's crib, thorns piercing swaddling cloth. She woke in cold sweat, summoned a double watch of shields outside nursery, and signed orders for dozen new tasters in kitchens. Beyond the narrow sea, the 3 newborn dragons writhed above smoking supper of charred goat. Daenerys Targaryen, blood of old Valyria, watched flame plumes light night horizon. She received tidings from Illyrio, Westeros fracturing, Robert warring lions, Queen of Roses grown. She traced her brother's signet with thumb and whispered, I will take what is mine. She bade Jorah Mormont ready ship, though the exiled knight warned, until the lion and stag exhaust each other, the dragon must wait. Let them bleed then, she answered. I will ride the wind that rises from their ashes. Winter's edge nipped the neck when wolf banners met trout along Green Fork. Caitlyn Stark, bearing Robb's proxy, treated with Edmure and Brynden Tully. News of Ned's victory at Fairmarket heartened them, yet dread of Tywin's rumored new alliance chilled Feast Hall. Scouts spoke of Selsail companies landing at Case, ironborn ships under Euron's black sails. The Kraken and Lion twined? Caitlyn's stomach tightened. Across the sea lanes, Stannis' fleet intercepted Euron off Fair Isle. Battle raged under crescent moon, seawater boiling with wildfire from casks flung by lickspittle alchemists. Stannis' flagship Fury rammed silence stem to stem. Amid shrieks of splintered oak, the Kraken's crew boarded, axes whirling. Stannis, taller in legend than life, cleaved 2 men before a reaver's mace shattered his helm. Only a last-minute surge from Davos Seaworth's Black Betha drove Euron off, sails tattered. Yet Stannis lay wounded, skull bleeding. Word of his near death spread like lantern oil upon straw. Some said the Lord of Dragonstones will faltered. Others whispered his maester found leech marks upon Stannis' arms, evidence of Melisandre's fires flaring again. In King's Landing, the trial of the poison plot at last convened. Witnesses swore names, blame, and bribery. A scullion confessed seeing Cersei's made slip files into pantry. Another claimed Littlefinger's payment purchased festival sparklers. Nothing more. Confessions contradicted until truth dissolved into mist. Margaery sat the judges' panel with Renly and Grand Maester Gorman. The queen weighed each word, but certainty slipped like eel. Meanwhile, unrest festered in streets. Bread lines lengthened. Lannister gold dried up. Reach grain yet traversed, but thieves multiplied. Gold cloaks, many still loyal to the lion, rousted Tyrell merchants at night. Riot simmered. On the 3rd day of trial, a riot boiled over. Sparrows preaching outside the sept blamed royal sins for war. Divorce, annulment, false heirs. They seized a Tyrell wagon of olives, cracked barrels. Soldiers arrived, and blood-soaked cobbles. 6 dead, twice that wounded. High Septon demanded audience. Margaery received him. He pressed for humility, penance, and veiled Cersei's restoration to placate gods. The queen listened, then offered coin for Septri repairs, but not crowns for lost cause. The Septon left unimpressed. That night, thunder split the sky. Lightning illuminated a figure scaling the Tower of the Hand. Another assassin? Guards fired bolts. The shadow leapt, cloak flaring, and vanished. Within tower, Ned found a dagger buried in his desk. Valyrian steel blade he once recognized at Winterfell. when Bran lay broken. Attached, a parchment. One misstep and wolves die first. Anger built into hoarfrost inside him. He ordered double patrol. On the 21st day of the campaign, Robert's host smashed the Lannister siege line at Maidenpool. Ser Barristan led vanguard, hammering redcloaks through rain-slick fields. Robert himself broke Ser Adam Marbrand in single combat, crushing helm and arm. Maidenpool's gates opened. Gaunt citizens hailed Stag banners with ragged cheers. But victory birthed omen. Ravens from King's Landing message. Riot spreading, poison trial collapsed into chaos. Jaime Lannister escaped custody during uproar, fleeing east with Cersei. A ship called Golden Dawn last seen leaving Blackwater with lion sails. Robert roared fury. He dispatched galleys to hunt, but seas churned. He sent riders to warn Ned. Tywin may burn riverlands in vengeance. Yet deeper fear stabbed. Cersei with Jaime meant union, plotting, perhaps claiming Myrcella and Tommen to raise rebellion elsewhere. Dorne? Bravos? He marched west to cut Tywin's retreat. The escape sparked paranoia in capital. Gold cloaks purged those suspected of aiding. Yet many cloaks themselves vanished. Tyrion confronted Littlefinger in Garden of Spilled Moonfire Blooms. Your networks failed or conspired, he hissed. Littlefinger twirled a rose. Chaos is a ladder, dear imp. Some climb, some fall. I merely hold the rungs. Tyrion's knuckles whitened on wine cup. Climb too high and wind strips you bare. Littlefinger smiled. Then pray for calm skies. Margaery sought alliance certain. She met with the High Septon and offered to fund orphanages, clothe sparrow armies, and build a new sept dedicated to the mother in Highgarden's name. In return, she asked blessing upon her child as divinely anointed and condemnation of Lannister uprising as heresy. The Septon, eyes gleaming, saw coffers refilled and power forestalled. He agreed. That night he pronounced before throngs in the square. The Dowager Queen Cersei defies God's will. Her flight with sin-spawn Jaime invites doom. The crowd chanted Edric's name. Yet behind pillars of the sept, a lone septon slipped into shadows, bearing missive to shady dockside chapel where masked prophets awaited. The faith militant, long dormant, whispered rebirth. Weeks stretched into moonturn. Snowflakes swirled as far south as King's Landing, a harbinger of true winter. Ned's host clashed with Tywin at Wendwater Ford. A brutal dawn melee amidst freezing sleet. Roose Bolton flanked. Greatjon roared. Stark banners drove Lannisters into river. Tywin withdrew but not shattered. He left fields salted, villages torched, scorched earth to deny harvest. Then came the letter that froze Ned's veins. Delivered by Bolton's maester, sealed with kraken tentacle and lion paw entwined. Inside, a lock of auburn hair, Caitlyn's shade, and 5 words: return Jaime or she dies. Ned's heart hammered. Could Cersei have seized Caitlyn? No. Rumor placed her sailing east, but Ironborn had thrice raided near Seaguard. Cat had traveled between Twins and White Harbor. The captured, Tywin now held his wife. Ned swallowed rage, called war council. They must strike swiftly. Yet Robert and half the host were west, pursuit of Cersei unknown. Bolton suggested prisoner exchange. We hold Ser Kevin at Riverrun. A trade. Ned refused. Caitlyn for Jaime endangered Edric's claim and gave Tywin strength. Yet if Cat died, he penned Raven to Robert begging counsel, and another secret to Margaery warning of Iron Lion Pact. At sea off the Shield Islands, Golden Dawn encountered Gale. Jaime braced his sister as thunder cracked. Sail rent, masts splintered, hull slammed shoals. Crew perished. Survivors crawled onto weed-slick rocks. Dawn painted bleak horizon. Cersei's beauty was mud-smeared. Jaime's sword lost. They were found by smugglers bound for Lys. Aboard Moon Maiden, they learned Tywin's host reeling, city turning. Cersei vowed red vengeance. She clasped Jaime's hand. We sail to Essos. Gold will buy swords. We will return with cell sails enough to paint Blackwater red. Jaime stared over gray waves. And our children? They will rule when we reclaim throne. If they live, Jaime murmured. Cersei's grip tightened. They will. We will scour roses from stone, burn stags to ash. In the Red Keep, Margaery received Ned's raven by candlelight. She read, face pale, then summoned Lady Olenna, Ser Barristan, and Varys. Tywin holds Lady Stark, she said. He demands Jaime. We cannot yield him. Yet Ned Stark will not abandon his wife, Olenna mused. Varys nodded. A trap laid to divide king from hand. Remove Ned and Robert stands blind in the west. Barristan's jaw clenched. Then we must rescue Lady Stark. Easier to tame a dragon, Olenna scoffed. Margaery's eyes sharpened. Perhaps a dragon we shall find. She unfurled map. If Cersei hunts Sells-words, she'll dock Lys or Tyrosh. We know their ports. Dispatch agents, hire the fleet of keys to shadow her. Meanwhile, send word to Riverrun. Blackfish has reavers who know ironborn tricks. Olenna's brows lifted, granddaughter wielding board pieces with flair. Very well, but what of the people? Bread riots stir again. Open the granaries, Margaery said. Distribute stew and bread daily at each September, show them their queen's heart. She paused. And send stags of silver to families of those slain during riot. Varys bowed. Word will spread. Far north, on the wall, Jon Snow watched pale dawn creep over icy waste. Ravens brought tidings of war, but more dire rumors of white shadows prowling forest. Commander Jeor Mormont weighed, sending plea for more men south, yet knew none could spare swords. Jon, torch in hand, descended steps to deliver message. The realm fights itself while greater darkness gathers. Mormont's weary eyes met his. Then we hold till they look north. Rain turned to sleet on fields of Ashmark, where Robert at last cornered Tywin's war-weary host. 20,000 Baratheon and Tyrell spears faced 15 of Lion and Kraken under Banner Cross. The night before battle, Robert strode camp lines, clasping shoulder of every soldier, recalling names, jesting of tourneys past. He knelt beside a dying squire, promised to carry his sigil into fray. At dawn, horns sounded. Lines clashed on soggy earth. Renly's bright banners met Blackfish outriders. Garland Tyrell led shield wall. Robert thundered upon spotted destrier, hammer raining ruin. He sought Tywin, who directed reserve near Oak-crowned hill. Mid-melee, a hail of Kraken axes broke Renly's flank. Torgud Blackiron nearly reached the king's standard before Ser Loras felled him. Thunder rumbled overhead. By late afternoon, Lion lines buckled. Sighting Tywin near hill crest, Robert spurred his mount. The old lion, clad in burnished crimson, raised sword, gray eyes cold. They met among trampled wildflowers. Hammer smashed shield, sword bit pauldron. Thunder cracked, rain blinded. Tywin's blade hewed strap, Robert's hammer crunched gorget. Then arrow hissed, black-fletched, from unseen archer. It buried in Robert's thigh. He reeled. Tywin lunged, but Garland's spear thrust between them. Lions pulled their lord back behind shield knot. Baratheon trump. T.S. blared. Line advanced. Kraken scattered. At dusk, Tywin withdrew under cover of smoke, leaving field to Stag. He lost half his host. Robert's victory near total, but his leg wound festered before maesters reached him. Fever spiked. He remained afield, refusing stretcher, until collapse forced carriage. Ravens raced to capital. King wounded yet lives. Host victorious. Return imminent. Margaery received news with tears, half joy, half terror. She ordered pyre of myrrh and cedar burned in thanks to the mother, then began preparations for Robert's healing. But her secret agents also bore word. Cersei docked in Lys, negotiating with the Golden Company, promising half the realm in gold. Worse, Joffrey had slipped guard at Dragonstone, fled with Hound Sandor Clegane toward Stormlands. War, it seemed, sprouted endless Hydra heads. The Queen met with Ned upon his return to capital, Harroway dust on cloak, grief for Cat's peril hollowing his cheeks. They stood beside moonlit cradle. "I could not trade Jaime," Margaery said softly. "I know." Ned's eyes lingered on Edric's sleeping face. But Caitlyn's life, she will not die. Margaery's hand touched his arm. I have friends moving to rescue her. He studied her earnest gaze. You gamble much. For crown, yes. For Edric, everything. Ned nodded. Then let us stand together. In that alliance, forged by necessity and respect, the realm found new fulcrum. Wolf and Rose bent to defend Stag. Yet shadows lengthened. Tywin licking wounds in Westerlands, Cersei courting Golden Company abroad, faith militant stirring. Stannis wounded while Melisandre's flames whispered of a prince reborn in smoke and salt. And far beyond, a queen with dragons preparing to cross storm-tossed seas. And through it all, winter crept. Ice on leaf, silence on field. Waiting to claim victor and vanquished alike when roses and lions and stags had spent their final breaths. The moon over King's Landing swells to a battered coin as winter's first true breath creeps through the crack-stitched lanes, painting frost on iron hinges, tightening every rope and sinew. Within Maegor's holdfast, the royal apartments glow like a hearth banked against the chill, but warmth there is never untroubled. Robert returns at last, borne on a litter draped in black stag banners bordered with fresh rose thread. His leg, skewered by the arrow meant for heart or groin, festers despite Maester's poultices. Each jolt of the litter draws a grunt torn raw from his chest. Still, when the portcullis rattles open and the crowds roar their welcome, the king forces himself to stand, leaning on Ned Stark's shoulder. He raises a mailed fist skyward. Your king lives, he bellows, voice hoarse but unbowed. And so shall this realm. A storm of cheers answers, but fear hides in every echo. The folk have heard talk. Poison in feasting halls, riots near the sept, women and babes trampled at corn stalls, and now whisper that even Robert's hammer might break beneath so many blows. Margaery is at the gate before the palanquin can halt, cloak petals fluttering. She flings protocol aside, climbs into the litter, and folds her arms round Robert's broad neck. Ned sees her whisper something into his beard. Robert's laugh rolls out, ragged but true. He presses her hand to his breastplate, lets her guide him down the steps. Later, servants will speak of how that moment, queen bracing king, babe in nurse's arms behind them, looked like the heart of summer planted amid encroaching frost. The king's bedchamber becomes war room and infirmary both. Maester Lomax leeches foul blood. Pycelle mutters over crushed herbs. Grand Maester Gorman of Old Town examines stitches, clucks tongue. Robert curses at every needle but endures. At dusk he orders maps spread on the coverlet. Ned, Renly, Ser Barristan, and Lady Olenna stand watch over chessboard of kingdoms. Margaery sits beside pillows, dabbing Robert's brow when fever spikes. Tywin is wounded, Robert says, breath hissing. He slunk to Casterly Rock with half an army. We hold field. Field, yes, Ned answers. But crags and mines still feed him. He'll breed fresh hordes come spring. Renly leans against bedpost. If spring comes, the last raven from the wall says snow's waist-deep at Queen's Crown. Winter may choke Tywin inside his own red walls. Or choke us all. Robert's gaze turns to Olenna. How many wagons of grain can the Reach spare? As many as your roads can bear. The old woman replies, eyes sharp as shears. But Lords Tyrell will want recompense should fields lie fallow next planting. They'll have honors, Robert growls, and seats besides. The realm must feed or starve together. Margaery smooths quilt. Then we must secure the roads. Banditry blossoms with frost. She meets Ser Barristan's eye. I would send Garland with 300 seasoned men to guard convoys. Done, Robert agrees. And I'll command the city watch to patrol granaries. He shifts, grimacing. Where's Littlefinger? I need coin to fund all this. Pycelle clears throat. Lord Baelish departed at dawn, your grace. He claimed urgent matters with the Iron Bank. Robert exhales through clenched teeth. That fox. Ned, write the bank. No loans without crown seal. If Peter flips so much as a copper, I'll have his head. Far across the narrow sea, in Lyssa's perfumed harbor, Cersei Lannister's rented villa overlooks a surf the color of black pearls. Jaime stands on a loggia, hands splayed, watching Cersei triremes crest the horizon under gold and crimson pennants. The Golden Company come to bargain. Inside, Cersei paces before a table strewn with scrolls. Troop strengths, coin columns, promises writ in blood. She pours dark sweet wine, downs half, and slams cup. They ask 10,000 dragons up front, she snarls. Jaime's gaze never leaves the sea. We have the rock. Father will pay. Father bleeds. The mines yield slower each year. If you doubt gold, promise them Westeros itself. Cersei's green eyes gleam. I will promise them Storm's End, Dragonstone, the Reach, whatever it takes. Once we reclaim the throne, we'll strip Tyrell Gardens to bare soil. Jaime turns. And Joffrey, secured at Storm's End soon enough. I've word the Hound reached Griffin's Roost. Lord Cannington owes Golden Company old favors. Jaime fingers the white cloak he still keeps folded in his trunk. We gamble high. We play for the Iron Throne. She lifts cup again. There is no higher stake. On the stepstones, galleys of Bravos and Tyrosh clash over tolls. Amid wreckage drifts a sealed keg wrenched open by a shark scathe. Inside, instead of wine, small porcelain vials clink softly. Strangler, tears of Lys, basilisk venom. Most sink. A few wash ashore near a humble sept at Mistwood. A barefoot septon gathering driftwood finds them. By nightfall he kneels before a dark-robed envoy whose iron crown bears no sigil. Thus the faith militant arms unseen. In the Riverlands, Blackfish Brynden Tully and Edmure command a daring raid upriver to seize the prize Ned Stark cannot ignore. Guided by Myrcella's childhood nurse, they track ironborn outriders to an abandoned mill near Fairmarket. Under cloud-swollen night, Blackfish's picked men wade chest-deep across frigid shallows, cut throats of sentries, slip through shattered siding. Inside, they find Caitlyn Stark bound but unbowed. Eyes blaze when her gag is cut. The twins, she rasps. Tommen and Myrcella, they kept them elsewhere. Blackfish frees her, but alarms sound. Axemen crash through doors. Crossbow bolts hiss. Torchlight corals with shadow in wild flicker as steel sings. Caitlyn snatches fallen dirk, slashes her captor, then follows Brynden through trapdoor to wheel race below, water thundering around them. They scramble along mossy beams, leap into river. Arrows pepper black water, but current bears them away. Dawn finds them half-frozen on muddy bank under willow droop. Robb's wolf banner soon rides to claim them. Ned receives Raven. Your lady delivered safe. Ironborn fled northwest, cubs unaccounted. Relief pulses sharp, yet concern knots. Tommen and Myrcella as hostages remain a blade above Edric's cradle. King's Landing wakes to gray drizzle and steady toll of Septon Clovis' cracked bell, summoning small folk to the courtyard for bread forgiveness. Margaery oversees distribution herself, standing beneath silk awning while barrels of stew and loaves are ladled out. She smiles, speaks gentle words, even kisses a toddler's brow. Murmurs ripple. Our queen walks among us, not above. Yet in crowds' edges, zealots in rough-sewn seven-pointed stars preach that her charity cannot cleanse the sins of adultery and bastard heirs. One heckler calls Edric an imp of fornication. Tyrell guards hush him, but seeds are sown. That evening the High Septon arrives unannounced to Royal Solar. He bows low. Your Grace, the star is troubled. The low-born cry that lions and roses alike poison virtue. I propose a cleansing procession to atone for disorders. Your Grace carried barefoot through streets, babe in arms, to humble before the gods. Margaery stiffens, but her smile stays. Bare feet in winter risk frostbite, most devout. Sacrifice warms the spirit. He presses parchment. Sign, and the seven will see your penitence. She schemes text, pledges ceding certain tithes, granting the faith right to arm 500 brothers for protection of pilgrims. Softly she folds scroll. I shall discuss with the king upon his recovery. The Septon's mild eyes sharpen. Delay may imperil souls. Then pray the mother grants Robert swift strength. She answers, rising. He departs, robes whispering like tide withdrawing. When door shuts, Margaery tosses scroll into fire. Sickness clings to Robert like a jealous lover. The wound oozes green. Fever dreams of his first rebellion haunt nights. Lyanna's laughter, Rhaegar's ruby-burst breast. Maester Lomax fears blood poison will claim the king before first thaw. Ned urges removal of leg past arrow sight. Pycelle recoils. Renly suggests Myrish fire salve. It blisters. Finally Ser Davos arrives, bearing Melisandre, red-robed and serene. Guards bristle, but Stannis' seal opens the path. Melisandre kneels by bedside. Your Grace's flame flickers in shadow of cold. She offers vial of dark oil. Blood of the king over king's steel, set aflame, will burn infection. Ned calls it sorcery. Margaery hesitates, but Robert, half delirious, nods. Let her try. Melisandre chants in lilting Valyrian, smears oil along the wound, pricks Robert's finger, lets drops sizzle on blade of his hammer. She strikes flint. Crimson flame roars blue-hot. Robert howls. Smell of burnt corruption fills room.
Come don fever brex, swelling subsides.
Lomax gapes, but Pycelle mutters of smoke and sweat baths. Melisandre departs, leaving shadow of doubt and flicker of gratitude behind. In the Vale, Lysa Arryn receives raven from Cersei promising betrothal of Tommen to sweet Robin if the Knights of the Eyrie will close mountain passes to Stark armies. Lysa preens, but her counselor Yohn Royce cautions. A lion's promise devours itself. He writes to Ned, pledging bronze guard at Bloody Gate if roost whispers become talons. Winter deepens. Snowflakes swirl over the Blackwater. Children marvel, old heads worry. In the Red Keep's Septon Library, Tyrion pores over ledgers, cross-checks grain stores. He intercepts letter hinting at Littlefinger's new loan from Iron Bank using Myrcella's weight in gold as collateral. He confronts Baelish upon his abrupt return. Peter smiles, brush of Winterfox trim upon cloak, and says, "The crown must float upon rivers of coin. Better I steer the raft than rivals." Tyrion snorts, "And when the raft sinks?" Littlefinger's green-gray eyes glitter. "I will already own the river." Sea winds whip Dragonstone's ramparts as Stannis emerges to watch red starfall shower horizon. He grips parapet, bandaged scalp throbbing. Melisandre stands beside, hair swirling like wildfire smoke. "Robert's wound was the work of darkness," she murmurs. "But king's blood now spilt calls forth wolves of winter. Only the prince that was promised may stem night." Stannis' jaw clenches. "I am that prince. You are one shadow of Azor Ahai," she allows. "Yet other kings burn in my flames, boy of black hair swaddled in rose petals, and golden beast crowned in smoke." She casts crystal into brazier. Embers roar green, then blue. Stannis' eyes reflect shifting hues. "We sail when seas thaw," he says, "and if my brother's line must end for light to prevail." He does not finish. Across the mouth of the Mander, Renly Tyrell holds grand tourney to lift morale and draw reach lords further from Lannister allegiance. 1,000 knights answer. Loras defeats Ser Imry Florent in final tilt, gifts victory not to Highgarden's new bannermen, swearing fealty to Edric. Songs spread. The Knight of Flowers rides for the Rose Stag child. Renly feasts them, but in whispers he courts support for himself, should crowns topple. Brienne of Tarth, newly made sworn sword, hears all, says nothing, and pledges her honor to Renly's cause, whatever it proves. On the wall, Jon Snow rides patrol to the abandoned village of Whitetree. Tracks of giants, dire wolves, human feet, yet no living soul. At dusk he sees shapes pale as moon drift between trunks, eyes azure lanterns. One raises shriveled hand. Snow bursts upward like shattered glass. A ranger is dragged screaming. Jon's arrow shatters creature's cheek but does not slow it. Only fire drives them back. Jon writes Raven. The dead walk. Send men and dragonglass. No bird yet flies south. Winds hold. But destiny's drums begin. In Bravos, Illyrio Mopatis hosts Daenerys at manse wreathed in lemon trees. She sits before maps dotted with hireling fleets. Robert Baratheon bleeds. Illyrio purrs, his realm fracturing. Sail now, claim crown. Yora warns. Golden Company sells word to Lannisters. Seas thick with ice. Dany's violet eyes burn. We will sail through ice and blood both. She strokes Drogon's ebon scales. Embers dance in his nostrils. Let the realm learn a dragon's winter burns hottest of all. Back in King's Landing, Robert sits upon the Iron Throne once more, albeit with cane of black oak to steady. Court assembled.
Tyrell emeralds twinkle, stark vors rustle. Martell Copperstrix Boning besiede Salador sans rainbow silk.
Melisandre stands near throne's base, flame jewels aglow, silent.
Robert bangs war hammerhaft.
Let it be known, Edric Robert Baratheon, first of his name, shall inherit crown. Cheers some thin. He continues, furthermore I grant wardenship anew. The north remains Stark, the south Tyrell, the east Arryn, should they stand with crown. And the west shall remain Lannister only when Tywin bends knee and renders hostages for his faith. A herald reads warrant. Jaime Lannister declared traitor for flight. Cersei named enemy of realm. Lands and incomes to be seized until they submit. Confiscated wealth to feed war widows and orphan fund. While some clap, others murmur. Tyrion's lips purse. His father's coffers now open veins for Robert's decree. Peter Baelish glances at parchment, tallies debt lines inside head. A feast after, Robert drinks watered wine. Margaery sits luminous, Edric cooing in her arms. The king watches them with new, almost boyish awe. I have been a fool, he confesses to Ned. She is truer steel than half my lords. Then guard her well, Ned answers, for steel rusts when neglected. Tywin receives news at Casterly Rock Solar. Maester Craelyn reads edict. Candlelight flickers against lion banners. Kevin and Jenna watch father gnaw inner cheek like leather. He says at length, summon every smith. We mint coins bearing the lion rampant over burning Stag. Let the realm see our defiance. He rises, favors arrow-heeled shoulder. Send Raven to Cersei. Secure Golden Company's landing at Blackwater Bay by new moon. Euron will harrow Shield Islands to distract Tyrells. We strike where Rose and Stag entwine. Kevin ventures, Father, winter roads. Winter blinds foes too. Tywin's voice snaps. The lion hunts in snow as well as sun. Snow clouds obscure the capital's dawn when an incendiary pamphlet appears on sept doors. The Whorequeen sells our souls to false gods. Rise, faithful. Gold cloaks tear copies down, but chants echo alleys. A zealous mob storms a wine cellar rumored to supply Tyrell feasts. For vintners beaten, Septinut, a thin man with wildfire eyes, preaches at Street of Seeds, draws hundreds. High Septon wavers, half fearing revolt, half coveting power. Varys warns Margaery, fanatics born of hunger bite hardest. She convenes council in Queen's ballroom. We meet fear with mercy, she declares. Double grain rations, open healing tents with septas and Tyroshi alchemists both, and stage a public blessing. The king and I shall visit the sept, barefoot if need be. Renly objects, a target painted bright.
Ser baristan natsgrim.
Allow me to quadruple guard. Robert squeezes wife's hand. We'll brave it together. Plans shift like sand under surf. 2 nights later, a Tyrell messenger races into Red Keep. Golden Company galleys sighted off Massey's Hook, sails trimmed for Storm's End. Sandor Clegane's column escorting Joffrey has joined them. Sigils of Griffin and Boar fly beside Lion. Lord Penrose, Castellan of Storm's End, sends plea. We are cut off. Robert orders ravens. Gather host. We march in 7 days. Pain flares in leg. He clenches teeth. I ride too. Doctors protest. Robert silences them. Margaery's brow furrows, but she does not forbid. Take Garland and Brienne, she urges. Take half the city watch. Across table, Tyrion points stubby finger at map. If Tywin aims Stormlands, he means to break your bastion, then turn on capital while you siege your own seat. Leave trusted commander, say Ser Barristan, as steward here. Robert grudgingly agrees. Melisandre's low voice hovers. Beware, seaborn shadow. I see tide of gold and crimson washing walls. Ned eyes her uneasily. Prophecies cut both ways. Yet only one edge is honed, she replies. Meanwhile, Littlefinger hosts secret supper in Bailey Apartments. Guests, Septinut, 2 guild masters of Ibanish bankers, and a hooded Bravosi calligrapher. He unveils parchment forging cut of Crown's next loan to fund Faith Militant. We purchase swords for pilgrims, he purrs, who in turn protect shipping. Coin circulates. Ut's fanatic stare meets Baelish's sly grin, all part of ladder's next rung. Outside, a washerwoman overhears talk. Next dawn her body floats in black water, pockets stuffed with copper stars. By first snows of the new year, Caitlyn Stark rides into King's Landing escorted by Blackfish and a wedge of Northmen. She is gaunt but unbroken. Reunited with Ned beneath tower steps, they share embrace to Hush Hall. Margaery greets her warmly, offers guest apartments overlooking Godswood Pond iced in glass. That night, over mulled wine, they speak of captivity. The Ironborn boasted a new alliance, Caitlyn warns. Euron sails for Old Town, and Tommen. They treat him gently but raise him as prince. Myrcella the same. Margaery feels chill deeper than winter. Tywin's living heirs still bargaining chips. We must rescue them soon, before they're forged into swords against us, she says. Caitlyn agrees. A mother's heart knows no bonds but children. Cersei will burn worlds for them. Word arrives that Sansa Stark, still betrothed to Willis Tyrell at Highgarden, writes of infiltrators. Bravosi sells words posing as musicians, asking coded questions about palace tunnels. Olenna sharpens suspicion. She writes to House Hightower for additional gar. Rhysand, the lion hunts south. Guard our blooms. The day of royal penance dawns cold and clear. Robert and Margaery don humble homespun, discard jewels. Robert limps yet stands unbowed. Edric is wrapped in plain wool. Ned, Barristan, Brienne, Loras, and 20 gold cloaks form cordon as procession winds from Red keep to Great September. Small folk line streets. Some bow, others gape. The queen hands out silver stags. Robert lifts children onto shoulders. Chants shift from suspicion to cheers. At September's marble steps, High Septon meets them. He raises crystal scepter. As they kneel, Septon emerges with dozen rag-clad brothers, each bearing rusty blade. The crowd hushes. Proclaims, "Let the sinners shed blood as proof." He brandishes knife toward Robert's arm. Barristan intercepts, blade ringing. Pandemonium erupts. The zealots draw knives. One slashes at Margaery. Brienne's shield catches blade. Robert swings cane, knocks zealot sprawling. Crowd surges, some protect, others strike. Bells peal in frenzy. Amid chaos, Melisandre strides forward, eyes blazing red. She chants. Torch flames spiral skyward, forming blazing sigil. The zealots recoil, faces lit eerie crimson. Gold cloaks seize Ut, drag him away. Brothers disperse. High Septon trembles but blesses royal family swiftly. Procession retreats, battered but alive. Rumor claims a fiery shadow leapt from torch to devour dagger. Others say it was trick of light. Back in keep, Margaery's sleeve torn, shallow cut on forearm. Robert rages, "Enough mercy. Faith must be bridled." He orders its public execution. High Septon protests meekly, but Robert's roar silences. Next morn, Ut's head spiked above Sep's gate. Some applaud, others hiss. Varys whispers to Ned, "Now fanatics will martyr him. Fire breeds fire."
Ned sighs.
"Yet cannot let blades at my king's throat." Edric's first tooth appears. Omens say strong luck. Maester Lomax hosts naming feast for Wolf's Moon. Musicians play mellow airs. Robert kisses Margaery's scar. Peace seems near until Raven arrives midnight from Storm's End. Walls encircled by golden company. Griffins scale trefoils, lions pound gates, kraken ships blockade sea. Penrose holds but cannot last. Robert gathers counsel. "We march," he says, voice iron. Ned volunteers. Robert agrees but insists he himself leads center. A king who hides invites usurpers. Margaery clasps his gauntlet. Then go win, my love, but return. He smiles, kisses her brow. That night, Margaery walks ramparts, Edric asleep in nurse's cradle. Snow drifts ghost-fine across battlements. She looks east, where horizon fades to void, and whispers prayer. Mother, guard him. Warrior, guide him. Maiden, keep my son. Somewhere far, a dragon's roar answers low across still air, though only gulls will overbay. She shivers, not from cold alone. At dawn, columns gather. Banners, stag, rose, direwolf, trout, snap in bitter wind. Robert mounts destrier, leg bandaged but sturdy.
Ned rides grey garon.
Renly dons green armor filigreed with vines. Loras rides beside. Garland leads wagon guard. Tyrion remains in city to juggle coffers. Ser Barristan left as Lord Protector in King's absence. Caitlyn and Margaery stand on rampart with Edric to watch men ride out the mud gate. Flurries swirl, horns blare, hooves thunder. As the last tail of dust fades, Margaery feels hollow ache. Olenna rests a gnarled hand on her sleeve. Courage, child. Gardens endure storms. Margaery forces nod, but glancing at Edric's cherub face, she senses storms now come from every horizon. Lion, kraken, faith, winter, fireborn dragons, all converging. She whispers again, softer, endure. The babe's dark lashes flutter. He smiles in sleep, as if hearing promise deeper than words. But on the roiling summer sea, the Carrick silver harpy changes course. Its captain, bought by Lannister gold, sails north instead of Pentos, carrying crates of wildfire disguised as olive oil. Destination: the mouth of the Blackwater. In his cabin, a Braavosi scribe writes letter to LB. The wolf left, the lion strikes soon. The rose wilts in frostfire. He seals with coin minted of half stag, half rose, Baelish's personal mark, and slips wax into hidden drawer. Far below, in bilge gloom, rats gnaw holes in a barrel branded with alchemist's sigil. Green seep starts to hiss, and winter's moon climbs higher, patient witness to the weaving skein, as every player, stag, lion, rose, kraken, wolf, dragon, faith, moves toward a night where swords and sorcery shall decide whether Edric Baratheon's first tooth bites into bread of peace or into iron of war.